Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome to another edition of the Midwest Blitz. It's Coach Drew, and we're also here with Big Nick. Yeah, yup.
Yeah, yup.
Well, obviously, you can tell he might look like somebody famous on the sideline. I don't want to give any spoilers away if you can't see it, but he's wearing red, and he might have a letter I and another U on it, and he's wearing an Adidas red jacket. Now, again, those are just some characteristics of what we're seeing in that corner, but we are recapping week 4, right, Nick? Recapping it. There's a lot going on. A lot of great things happen.
There's a lot of stuff happened. There's only one game that really matters, but we'll get to that later. We know that it was Indiana smashing top 9 ranked Illinois over the weekend. I mean, it was the only game that really lived up to the hype this weekend, if you're an Indiana fan, which I am. We will talk Texas Tech and Utah and some other Midwest football action, but I'm pretty pumped. For those of you who can't see what I'm wearing, yes, I am repping the Signetti piece from the Signetti collection. It is the sideline jacket of the aforementioned Kurt Signetti. So if you don't want to hear about Indiana, then this might not be the show for you. But we are going to talk other football, right, Drew?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we're going to start first. We're going to start with the AP. Well, if we go around, Ohio State's still number 1. Penn State's now number 3. They dropped 1. Miami jumped to them. That's now number 2. Oregon 6. They stayed even. Then we have a jump, huge jump. Some say the biggest jump in the AP. Indiana's now 11 plus 8 movement spots up. Michigan 19. They moved up twice. We have USC 21. They moved up 4, taking over Notre Dame at 22. That moved up plus 2 from the 24 slot. Illinois dropped back to 23, and that was a drop 14 back. That's your leaderboards. Also, just want to mention, too, as well, the ACC is experiencing something that we have not seen in years. Maybe because of NIL, maybe because of different things are happening just down there. But Dabo Swinney might be on his way out, Nick, isn't it? Because he got another loss, didn't he?
Yeah, did I hear a quote from old Dabo that he said, well, if they're tired of winning, they can get rid of me. Did you hear something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. This man knows how to win ball games, but apparently not this year, and that's what's being questioned here. I do believe that if he decided to move on to another university, if that's by choice or if he gets forced to, I think he'll be fine, absolutely. Dabo Swinney's a good guy. I've always heard him talk very well, whether they win or lose, about their opponent gracefully. Now, I understand he doesn't like the NIL, and there's some things that just aren't working for him, but yeah, that's a huge loss for Clemson. Another interesting loss that like somebody was peeking in, besides the other games we're going to cover, because most of the games we're covering are mattering to the AP of the topic we've been talking about. Arkansas lost to Memphis, didn't they, Nick?
Yes, they did. Memphis was listed on ESPN in an article I read as being maybe a favorite to make the playoff as a group of 5 team, and I did watch some of that game. Little inside baseball for everybody. I'm watching 5 football games at the same time, so I don't always get to listen to what's going on. But I mean, Memphis was balling. Memphis is tough, so Memphis is definitely in the playoff picture right now. And who saw that coming? I also love Memphis's helmets with the Cincinnati Bengal tiger stripes, but obviously different colors. I always enjoy that. When's the last time Memphis was good? When D'Angelo Williams, I think, was running back there almost 20 years ago, played for the Carolina Panthers. You guys remember D'Angelo Williams?
Yep. And the Carolina Panthers just laid the wood to the Falcons earlier today, too, as they won 30-0, I believe, too. As we're recording this podcast, it is Sunday night, just so you understand. So we're not future tellers, so don't think that we're giving out any secrets. We do record this Sunday nights. So we also had some action that we want to also talk about. Toledo, one of our favorites, lost to Western Michigan on the road. What happened, Nick?
Man, the MAC is almost like the Big 12 where anybody could catch a stray at any time. I mean, if you look at the stats coming into this game, there's no way you would think Western Michigan would be able to stop Toledo offensively to the degree that they did, and that Western Michigan would be able to score the points that they did. So shout out to the Broncos from Western Michigan. My friend's dad played football there, one of the scariest humans I've ever met. I only call him Mr. Barons. We still don't call him by any other name, but the man fed me a lot of meals. Great guy. Mad love for the Broncos. I did not think Toledo would lose that game. I thought Toledo would be able to put up enough points that it would be out of the question, but I mean, that's the MAC, kind of like the Big 12. Anybody could take it on the chin any game, it seems like, at least in the top half of the MAC.
Yeah, absolutely. And Buffalo got a loss too to Troy. Now, that Troy isn't in the MAC, but this does matter because that's a bad loss for Buffalo. So let's say Buffalo did stay undefeated or wins the rest of their games, where you're looking into the college football playoffs and they're not getting that look now if they win the MAC championship because, well, they just got a bad loss to Troy.
Well, Troy was up 14-0 on Clemson a couple weeks ago, I think. So Troy's nothing to sneeze at, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely a hurtful loss. Yeah, it's tough in MACland right now. I mean, we predicted Buffalo would win it when Phil Steele predicted Toledo would win it, but Buffalo's not scoring any points right now.
Yeah.
The defense is good, but...
Yeah, absolutely. And, Ohio won as well. And now we're looking at this MAC and we're like, it's starting to heat up because now we're getting past week 4. And when we cover week 5, there's a lot of good matchups. Don't want to spoil anything. But if you are looking for a tad bit spoiler, Oregon goes on the road to Penn State, in which is going to be a whiteout and a rematch of the Big Ten next week. But I'm not going to take anything else away from this podcast. I just wanted to give a little teaser right there. But as we transition to, we're going to be now talking about the Friday night matchup, Iowa and Rutgers. Or, yeah, this was the Friday night matchup, was it not, Nick?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is Friday night. It was funny because we were talking about this game as far as Iowa just not being really good offensively and not doing stuff through the air. And slowly but surely, they're getting their numbers up there, but it's still not where they want to be, isn't it, Nick?
I think Gronowski threw for 170-some yards, which, that sounds like, if you've been watching Iowa football's offense, that sounds like the Wright brothers taking flight in their first airplane at Kitty Hawk Beach. I mean, Iowa had not presented any passing game, even against non-Power 4 opponents so far. So, I mean, Iowa's offense definitely evolved a little bit against Rutgers the other day, which is what me and Coach Drew were wanting to see happen the last game, the game before that. Drew pointed out that their transfer quarterback, Gronowski, threw for about 10,000 yards at his prior stop in FBS. So if you had Iowa scoring 38 points, then you're way smarter than I am, because I told you guys to bet the under, which was about 46.5, and Iowa scored 38, which is unforeseeable, inconceivable, to quote a movie line. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, I mean, Iowa had 0 touchdowns through the air. Gronkowski had 13 carries for 55 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns through the ground, similar to kind of like what Bryce Underwood's doing. A lot of these quarterbacks aren't getting throwing touchdowns. They're doing stuff through the ground, which, again, I didn't mention Bryce Underwood. I have nothing against him. I just want to clarify that. Again, sometimes you just got to bring a little spice, a little hiccup, and sometimes you guys just don't pay attention, but that's just me. But, again, going back to this Iowa game, Iowa got a win in the Big Ten. They're 3-1. Rutgers is 3-1. They got a loss. We didn't really have anything special coming out of Rutgers. Iowa have higher expectations. This is good for them. But even this win against Rutgers doesn't do anything, I think, in my opinion, to help them with the top 25 AP. Because, again, I didn't see any voting for them. I know it doesn't matter. We're looking at college football playoffs, which doesn't happen yet. But the AP wasn't giving them any love. You got anything else to add before we move on to Texas Tech and Utah?
Kind of like we said in the preseason analysis, that if Iowa's going to throw the ball a little bit better like they did, then they will be dangerous. And the problem is my Hoosiers have to go play them next week. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to head over to Texas Tech at Utah. This was a top 25 matchup that we covered. Again, the Big 12 is like the cousins of the Big 10, so we don't get after them as crazy as we do the other people. One stat before I let Nick break it down for you guys that stood out to me. Besides the overload, Texas Tech scoring 24 points in the fourth quarter, I also wanted to mention that Devin Dampier, he threw his first 2 interceptions this week against Texas Tech, the most inconvenient time, and they lost at home. Not looking good for their future college football playoff odds, right? Nick, what was your insight for this game?
Well, I've been hyped about Devin Dampier and the Utah offense so far this year. They've been really fun to watch play prior to this game, but Texas Tech's defense it's so legit. Texas Tech's defense forced 4 turnovers in this game. I believe we said on the preview show for this that they allowed like 8 rushing yards to Oregon State. Texas Tech's defense is so tough. If you haven't watched them live, they've got some monsters in the middle, and they execute really, really, really well. They're not easy to run offense against. I also want to point out that Baron Morton, who I said in the preview show, I was looking forward to watching him play live, got injured in this game, and his backup, Will Hammond, a hometown boy from Lubbock, Texas, came in and went 13 for 16 with 2 touchdowns in a backup quarterback appearance. So it doesn't look good for Utah right now with their college football playoff hopes in the Big 12 that the star quarterback, Baron Morton, who we had as a dark horse for a Heisman finalist spot, was injured, and the backup came in and kind of lit it up for Texas Tech. So shout out to Will Hammond. You get to come in as the hometown guy off the bench. That's like something they write a movie about. But yeah, Utah struggled offensively throughout the game, and with Hammond in the game at the end, Texas Tech's offense really thrived. And I'll say this, Texas Tech's wide receiver group as a whole and their offensive pass concept as a whole, every receiver they have knows the play concept and really like goes and gets the football. They attack the football in the air. So Texas Tech's something to be reckoned with their very competent passing game, starting quarterback or backup quarterback. We'll see the status of Baron Morton heading into next week. But yeah, Texas Tech is something you don't want to mess with in the Big 12. I do want to give a shout out to Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker who led the attack from the Texas Tech defense. He had 11 tackles. That kid's a baller. What you got, Coach Drew?
Yeah, again, I'm just going to piggyback off what you said. Will Hammond coming into a position or a backup position, throws 2 tutties, while Morton also threw 2 interceptions. Always great to have controversy. That's why we like watching these games. Texas Tech, a lot of the simulations and a lot of early polls did have Texas Tech finishing in the top 12, and we kind of see it now that they beat Utah. They kind of controlled their own destiny, as that was like the only other one besides Iowa that Iowa State, let me clarify, don't want to get them mixed up. We don't want no rivalry fussing going around. The only clear people that I see Texas Tech having troubles with, and that would be Iowa State.
Yeah, that'll be a really interesting game. But I'm telling you, this Texas Tech defense, you cannot run the football against them so far. I mean, they've been it's not just size and strength up front, but the way they execute against running concepts, because Utah had been running a lot of RPOs and a lot of concepts where you got a mobile quarterback who had been accurate so far. And man, Devin Dampier, not to put it on him, but he couldn't really move the ball and do the same things against this Texas Tech defense that we had seen him do early in the season. So shout out to Texas Tech, the Red Raiders, man. There's your playoff dark horse right there.
Yeah, riding a horse as a Red Raider. Now, we're going to head over to Michigan, and we're going to go to the Cornhuskers, where first off, I'd like to apologize to the Michigan fan base. Again, I'd like to take this moment to apologize. I believe Bryce Underwood is a quarterback who can throw the football. I'm not doubting that, but sometimes, the designated plays do look really nice. As I was watching some of the replays, I did see this live. The players went out to the sidelines, all the wide receivers and out, and it looked like almost like Moses when he put the staff down, and Bryce Underwood just ran through Nebraska. It was not pretty. This game did end up being a walk-off or 3 points covered. Nick, go ahead.
So I took the points. I bet Nebraska plus 2.5, and I lost by 0.5 point. And if you followed my advice, you also lost by 0.5 point, which is one of the most deplorable endings for any sports gambler. I want to point out that Dylan Raiola was an absolute dog in this game. He completed a Hail Mary to his wide receiver, Barney, at the end of the first half that was so well executed. I don't want to try and describe it for people that don't have visual to see what I'm describing, but it was so great the way Nebraska set this Hail Mary up at the end of the first half, which made it a tie game at halftime. And I thought Nebraska really has a chance to win this game because I thought they had all this momentum. The problem is Dylan Raiola he was sacked 7 times. Raiola was the put your cape on champion at quarterback that all Nebraska fans wanted to see in this game. I was so impressed with Raiola every time he wasn't on his back because he was getting lit up by one of the monsters from Michigan's front seven. Dylan Raiola was great in this game. But the real story of this game is that Michigan dominated up front on both sides of the ball. Justice Haynes had another 75-yard touchdown run. That's going to be a really good fit in Ann Arbor. And they also utilized Bryce Underwood really well in the running game in the second half. They saved it, the running game, with Underwood.
What did they do with Bryce Underwood?
They didn't really run him until the second half. And in the second half, they started incorporating him into the running game, and then Nebraska was thrown off. But the problem really was that Nebraska was not as good up front on either side of the ball as Michigan. They kind of got their butt kicked up front, and that's got to be pretty disappointing for Cornhusker fans, especially as you see Dylan Raiola really living up to the hype. And me and Drew had questioned Dylan Raiola coming into the season. We thought he was a good player, but we weren't really sure if he was going to do everything that they said he was supposed to do. And so we were critics, or I was a critic. I don't want to throw you under the bus, Drew. Raiola was good in this game, man. He made some tough throws. He's got poise in the pocket. I'm impressed with Dylan Raiola, but I don't think they're good enough up front to stand up to tough Big Ten opponents right now.
Yeah, I mean, Nebraska's 0-29 against AP ranked people. Nebraska has to get away from this curse, I guess you can say. I mean, Bryce Underwood didn't throw a touchdown. I'm not going into it. That's a soft spot for some fans, but they're just gonna pound the ball, and Michigan's gonna play hard-nosed football, and I respect that. You know, a win's a win, right? But again, they're ranked 21 right now. They barely skated away from Nebraska. Yes, they're on the road. Nebraska is a hard place to play. But it's going to be interesting to see because now we have a little bit more film on Bryce Underwood in these games, playing in Oklahoma, playing at Nebraska, right? It's going to be interesting to see how much longer they can do this without him doing anything as far as like passing more than 105, right? I'm trying not to be too critical of him, but I do want to see this because if Michigan really believes that they can get back and take over this conference that is owned by Ohio State currently because they won the national championship, they got to do a little more. That's all I got to say. Go ahead, Nick.
So I'm going to ask a question that I don't have the answer to, but I wish I did. How do you sack the opposing team's quarterback 7 times as Michigan did the other day? How do you run the ball as well as they did and only win this game by 3 points? Now, I will throw a caveat in. There was a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, but like I said at the beginning of the segment, it was a really well-executed Hail Mary that I don't want to try and describe because I would have to like draw X's and O's and people that are just listening wouldn't really understand it. Michigan, it felt like, should have won this game by more than they did, which I don't want to knock them. They won the game on the road, but there's something that doesn't add up to me in this. But congratulations to Michigan and a great road victory for sure.
One of the things that we failed to mention, or maybe this might also help clarify, they had an interim head coach in temporarily. There could have been a fixated game plan. But again, it's hard to really justify the outcome, like Nick said, with the results. Well, Nick, do you want to stay in that state and talk about Michigan State and USC, the nightcap game? We're still going to talk about the other games. I want to pass the ball to Nick. We're gonna play fork in the road here. We can either go Michigan State, USC, or Purdue, Notre Dame. Nick, you pick.
Let's go Michigan State first. This one's pretty quick and easy. USC won the game 35-21. We thought that the Spartans had a chance to cover on the road. We had questions about USC's defense. I think those questions are answered in that USC's defense doesn't tackle very well, is not very disciplined, and is not very well coached. USC's offense slings the ball around the yard. Mayaba is awesome. Their wide receivers are very good. Their pass protection is pretty good. Michigan State, though, was able to go in there and drop 21 on them and cover the spread, which I did not pull the trigger on that bet, but I should have. Sparty lived up to my expectation of making that game harder than some people thought it would be for USC, especially Sparty had to go to the West Coast and play a late game and all these types of things. I'm still not sold on USC. Based on their schedule, they might win 9 games. We don't know yet. It's possible. I don't think that USC is a great football team. The problem, though, if we project from a Midwest perspective, when they visit Notre Dame, the game that me and Drew will be at, and we hope to see some of you there, Notre Dame can't defend the pass worth a lick, and that's the next game we're about to cover. That's why I brought it up. So USC is the finesse offense, slinging around athletes, and their defense is not that good. And Aiden Childs went in there and had a nice day, and Michigan State ran the ball pretty well. But I'm not sold on USC as being a playoff contender. I think they could get upset by somebody that has a more talented defense than Michigan State. No offense to the Spartans, but they're kind of young and they're kind of transfer portal heavy on the defensive side of the football. But that was a one-score game in the second half, Drew. You were over here watching that, right? I mean,
yeah, we were watching it together as we hung out this weekend briefly as I went down to Indianapolis to coach some baseball games. We did help people cover the spread. You're welcome, Mike, friend and listener of the podcast. We helped you guys there.
You're welcome, Mike. You're welcome, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome. Aiden Childs does it. He has 3 touchdowns. This USC's defense, not good at tackling. I think you made this reference. I don't even know if you remember making this reference, but you said, what? Because we were watching Indiana, Illinois before this game came on. You said, when Illinois and Indiana hit, it went. And I'm making 2 knuckles hit each other. You said, boom, boom. And then you said, when Michigan State and USC were fighting. And then the ref had to go and blow the whistle, right? So it's kind of funny. They weren't wrapping up as well. It's an interesting game. USC's offense has never been in question. It always has been their defense. Similar to Notre Dame, this might be the Wild Wild West when they come into South Bend in a few weeks. We actually do see USC travels to Nebraska, as Nebraska has to lick their wounds quickly from Bryce Underwood's performance that projected them, that was a close game. Now we're going to see USC really go head-to-head against an opponent who, like you said, who's going to upset them first, right? They're on upset alert.
That could be a high-scoring game because I don't think, obviously, I just said USC's defense isn't that tough. I'm not sure about Nebraska. USC's more of a passing team, so Nebraska might do a little better against them than they did against Michigan, but that will be an interesting game. I'm interested to see an over/under on that game.
Yeah, it's probably going to be moving a lot. I'm probably gonna guess it's gonna start around 60.
Yeah, I'm gonna say right now 58.5.
58.5.
That's my guess.
Nick, I think we kind of covered this one to the T. There's not really much to say. It was a late night game. We were having a blast. We were having fun time. We always have fun down at the penthouse of Big
Midwest
Nick.
Blitz, yeah.
Now, I'm not wearing my shirt, but he did get me a shirt that says, well, you know what? I'm not even going to say it. Let's just throw it on the podcast when we cover the preview for week 5. I'll just wear it then. But I appreciate you, big dog. So one of the things that we will be talking about now is a hot topic, as this game was in a weather delay, as so was Coach Drew while coaching, magically. Everything was in a weather delay in the whole state of Indiana. Who would have thought? 3 hours away and everybody's on the same damn delay. Notre Dame versus Purdue.
If you don't like the weather in Indiana, wait 5 minutes. Yeah, so Notre Dame's offense looked really good in this game. CJ Carr looked really good in this game, in my opinion. Again, we're big fans of CJ Carr in the Midwest Blitz. I think that his future at Notre Dame is so bright, and I just really enjoy watching the kid. Jeremiah Love was awesome. Jadarian Price was also awesome. The first play action to the transfer from Virginia, Malachi Fields, for the touchdown. I mean, it was poetry in motion. The Irish offense has a lot of good stuff going for it. And that's more than I can say for their defense. The once mighty Notre Dame defense, and specifically the once mighty Notre Dame secondary, looks a shambles under the direction of Chris Ash, the defensive coordinator, who has went away from the Irish's philosophy of man press coverage. You know, Drew, I talked to our Notre Dame insider this week several times about this change in philosophy that Notre Dame's had in their coverage ideas. And he asked me, Nick, you were a football coach. Why would you stop playing man press coverage and go to softer coverages and zone coverages? I want to say first, not everybody can play man press coverage, but Notre Dame has the athletes to do it. And they did it last year, and they've got returning players. So it's not a question whether you have the athletes to do it. So our Notre Dame insider asked, why would you stop playing man press coverage in lieu of playing softer coverages and more zone coverages? And I said, well, you either are stupid or you don't have the balls to continue doing what was successful before. They're both insults. This change in direction makes Notre Dame's defense look so freaking bad. I'm watching it as not a hardcore Notre Dame fan, but I'm from the state of Indiana, and I respect the Notre Dame program. Notre Dame Stadium is my favorite place to watch a football game. And I watch a receiver with a guy in man coverage or in deep third responsibility. It's hard to tell from the television view whether they were in a zone or in a softer man coverage, but the difference is the same. You got a corner that's lined up off. The receiver has room to get into his route and juke the guy that's covering him. It's not the most technical football description, but that's what you do when you don't have the athletes to keep up. If you're playing basketball and you're playing one-on-one against somebody that's more athletic than you, what do? You back up a step so he doesn't blow by you. Notre Dame doesn't have to back up a step with their quarterbacks. There's no reason to do it. Why are you doing it? There's no reason to play soft coverage. And there was one play in particular, if you watch this game, Irish fans, where Purdue's quarterback, Ryan Brown, who I think is a good athlete, and I actually enjoy watching him play. Brown gets flushed out of the pocket to the left, and he sees that the Irish are in this zone look, and he just kind of buys time, and then waits for his receiver to go into this little triangle of three Notre Dame defenders, and then he just drops it in this little hole, and they pick up like 10 yards on this play. Notre Dame is, incompetent playing this defense, meaning they don't execute it well. There's no reason for them to execute this well. The scheme sucks. The defensive coordinator should be... I'm trying to control my language, Drew. I don't want to be that guy. Chris Ash should be fired. He is so bad. This defense is so embarrassingly bad compared to how good it should be with the athletes that they have, with Christian Gray, with Leonard Moore, who I don't think played because he was injured. It doesn't matter. You've got long, athletic corners. Be a man, run man press coverage. I don't know why Marcus Freeman made this hire. It really pisses me off, to be honest with you, because we know that Marcus Freeman was a man press coverage type of guy when he was a defensive coordinator. This is an awful hiring decision. Chris Ash needs to go find a job in the Sun Belt or as an analyst for an NFL team. I don't know. Drew, did we talk about this? Should I feel bad for wanting the guy to get fired? He's made good money. He'll get another job. This is not the job for you. Would you drive an Indy car 55 miles an hour on the highway? Would you drive a NASCAR 45 miles an hour on a country road? No, you wouldn't. Because if you have a race car, you drive it like a race car, unless you're too soft and too weak to call plays and fucking dude, hit the pedal. Watching Purdue move the ball as easily as they did, dude, it just burned my ass. I'm sure you guys can't tell, but Chris Ash is terrible. He sucks. Dude.
Yeah, Chris, he's not, what the biggest thing is, his concepts, and we talked about this too before, his concepts and the way his zone works is they have to develop pressure. Well, I don't know what he's telling them is just line up and hit the pads. There's no stunts, there's no tricks, there's nothing, there's no like, there's nothing disguised. It's just literally like backyard football. And when you play backyard football, what do? You call slants, and that's exactly what happened against Texas A&M. They hit a slant guy, got like 60 yards, boom, in driving distance, score. Like, something has to change. Marcus Freeman, I will say this, I did see this on another podcast. They gave up 23 points at the beginning of the first half, and they didn't get the extra last 7 in the fourth quarter. Now, looking at the score and looking at it, I will say this. I didn't think they were going to be ranked anymore. There was this point where even if they would have won this game, they gave up too many points. The AP might have looked the other way because we already know the AP is, as is, fidgety and weird about that, right? Teams that have won in the previous national championships, and this is hard for me to say because I'm a Notre Dame fan, the teams that have won previously in national championship games have had stellar defenses. And the difference of points for
Hey, the Irish did cover the 25.5-point spread that I told you guys about. They won by 26, so I'll give them credit for that.
At least they covered Vegas's ass.
They covered my ass, Drew, and that's what really matters. Yeah, no thanks to Chris Ash. Drew, you bringing that up, sorry to cut you off, that was the perfect statement and the perfect line of thought if you're a Notre Dame fan or someone that wants to see this program succeed. Great teams, national championship teams, which is what Notre Dame competes for. Notre Dame's not trying to get to the Big Ten championship game. Yet you ain't doing it playing this soft-ass coverage. Grab your sack and get back to doing what you're good at. Marcus needs to make a move there, and he'll do it behind closed doors, and he'll be graceful about it. If and when he does it, I think the win will be sooner than later. What they're doing, it's so weak, man. It's so weak. You don't have athletes like that and run that soft-ass defense. You just don't do it.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman will say he's taking over defensive calls, and Ash would be an assistant to those calls, similar to the NFL. Like you said, if you ride the horse and you created this horse and you did everything, why are you going to give it to somebody else? I think Marcus Freeman has to have that same realization. He needs to be the one calling the plays. Yeah, he's a dope ass head coach. There's nothing about that. He's one of the coolest, slickest head coaches that are in all of college football, honestly, well respected. Sometimes could be more philosophical than answers, which people don't like because we're all not stoics, but that's neither here nor there and between the weeds. I will say this though.
Go ahead.
They will succeed as long as they can figure out how to play defense. Well, as I said that, and as easy as I said that, it's way easier said than done.
Marcus's approach as a head coach and the way he deals with the media is masterful, in my opinion. Everybody that's a head coach or that runs a small business or a big business makes a bad hire. Sometimes people have to be let go. And there's a coordinator I won't bring up who was the best job interview type guy ever. He had a pretty mustache, and he was very physically fit. And he was really well spoken and all this stuff. And I saw this guy get hired, and I watched his press conference when he got hired, and I was like, this guy's a snake oil salesman. I don't know if Chris Ash is a snake oil salesman. I don't want to insult him.
Was that a Mark Trestman reference?
No, it was an assistant for Indiana that nobody is going to remember or care about. But
I thought we were talking about Mark Trestman for a second because he also was a little snake.
You cannot continue to allow this defense to look as bad as it has because of bad play calling. And I'm telling you, Drew, all the potential that Notre Dame had in the passing game last year that we were like, hey, if they could get the passing game going, it's all, they have the potential to do that this year with a better passing quarterback, and they're not going to be able to capitalize on it because of a shitty play caller on defense.
Unfortunately, wrong person at the wrong time. And a lot of the things, and again, this is the last thing I'll say about this. The last thing, they are not capitalizing on the details. There's too many times where you might not have saw this a lot on the TV, right? I actually, kudos to myself, actually, now that I'm bringing this up, because when I went to the Texas A&M game, defense, anytime something bad happened, right, as far as like a big pass happened, the free safety would come down, talk to the cornerbacks would talk, and they're like, what did we do wrong? And they're trying to figure it out on the fly because they're playing too soft. But I get that as an athlete, you're trying to communicate and figure it out. But it almost was like after every play, they were like, what did we do wrong? What are we doing wrong? And they're getting frustrated because Ash isn't putting them into a position to succeed. He's like, go cover this zone. The ball may or may not come through this area, and the defense isn't doing anything. And then they have to go chase a guy who's 10 feet away from him because he's so damn wide open. It's just not good. It's not good. No one's having fun over there.
I'm glad you pointed that out too, and we'll move on if you want after I make this point. The safeties and the corners are communicating about, okay, well, my read was this and your read was this, so
Yep.
why do we still have a guy open? And they're trying to diagnose that amongst themselves as players, which shows the level of player and the level of desire to win and be a smart football player. That's the type of kids that Notre Dame has. And they're being wasted in a system that doesn't work. I've seen this before. It's bad. They need to get rid of Chris Ash. There's no doubt.
Yep. Before we move on to the next game, I do want to make a quick stat correction. Reading is fundamental, boys and girls, as Michigan State actually has a bye next weekend. But hold on. Before we have to reel it back and make an edit, we'll just say this. USC's going to Illinois, and Illinois might be pissed. That game is ready at 61.5 on the over-under, but guess why they're pissed? Can anybody take a guess? Maybe it's the guy who's wearing a red jacket over there looking like Sig. Nick, here's your time to shine. Drum roll, please.
Look, the Indiana Hoosiers had one of the biggest program victories that they've had in my lifetime. I'm an IU fan, and people are like, why are you an IU football fan? My dad was like the Cubs fans that never gave up on them winning the World Series. And the Cubs did win the World Series. And my dad passed away before Signetti got to Indiana. So I'm going to ride this Indiana success wave, and it's a family thing for me. So I know that Indiana has been bad. I know the perception is that Indiana is a basketball school, and I grew up on Indiana being a basketball school, so I understand all of that. I want to read you one number. I'm going to give you a story that you've all heard, and I'm going to give you one number. This is the story I heard this week. Indiana is a finesse offense that likes to spread you out and throw the ball. That's the story I heard. But Illinois is a tough team that likes to run the ball, and they stop the run. Here's the number that I want to give you. It's the only number you need to know from this game. 2 versus 2. Indiana had 302 rushing yards in this game. Illinois had 2 net rushing yards in this game. Not 52, not 22, not 32, 2-2. So you tell me, where is the finesse passing team that Indiana football is supposed to be? Indiana ran the ball like 38 times in this game. They threw it in the 20s. Indiana is not a finesse passing team, and I want to give full credit to Illinois. Illinois has a very good team. Illinois got very outcoached in this game, and Illinois fans, you should still be excited about your team. You have a good team. There are a lot of possibilities ahead for the Illini. They need to make some adjustments. They need to not be too dejected. This is a tough loss to take, right, Drew? I mean, you're ranked in the top 10. You already had a good road victory. It's tough for Illinois. The Illinois fans, don't give up on your team. This is still a good team. It's a team with a good coaching staff. But I want to say one more thing to all the alleged analysts, all the supposed football experts that cover these teams that I heard say, and this is personal to me because like I just said, my dad passed away before he got to see Indiana do as well as they have. I heard Illinois was more talented. I heard Illinois was more experienced. I heard Illinois was more this. Illinois was tougher up front. Illinois was this, and this, and Indiana's this soft passing team. How'd that pan out for you, alleged football analysts? Here on the Midwest Blitz, we actually watch every snap of football we humanly can between our coaching and officiating responsibilities. We actually do watch the games, And yes, I've got the Signetti shirt on, and I am an IU fan. I knew that Indiana was by far more talented than Illinois. I didn't guarantee a victory, but the idea that Illinois was more talented, anybody you listen to that said that either doesn't know ball or they're cheating on their homework. They didn't watch these teams. They didn't look at the rosters. Indiana had 4 preseason All-Americans, and those aren't even the guys that really busted Illinois' ass yesterday. They double-teamed Mikael Kamara, who I told you was the key to victory in this game, the All-American defensive end. They double-teamed him on the backside. He's a defensive end. They double-teamed him on the backside on running plays. How'd that work out for you? Not very well.
Not good.
Illinois got out-coached, and they got their butt kicked up front. Indiana is more legit this year on defense. They were the #1 statistical rushing defensive team in the country. If you're an IU fan and you don't like this video, you're not a football fan. Here's the test for Indiana, and I'm talking to the Indiana fans right now. They go to Oregon here in they got Iowa next week, then a bye week. They go to Oregon. I'm not overlooking Iowa, and don't worry, Signetti's not overlooking them either. The test of this defensive front is going to be when they go to Oregon here in a couple weeks. Oregon has one of the biggest, strongest, toughest offensive lines in the country. And I'm only saying that because I've got notebooks full of crap I could show you. Oregon is tough up front. 2 yards rushing Indiana allowed yesterday. How is that going to hold up when they go to Iowa next week? How's it going to hold up when they go to Oregon a couple weeks after that? That's the question about this Indiana team. If Indiana can hang competitive, I'm not saying they'll win at Oregon. If their defense can slow down Oregon's running game, this Indiana team is legitimate, not just a playoff contender, but a legitimate contender to beat anybody in America. Drew, what do you have to say?
So some things that were said during the broadcast that I want to point out, and some of the things that we talked about. Late Gary once said, the AP poll does not mean anything in the preseason. We don't know absolutely anything. I think that even means even more now because we're in the NIL era. I mean, you look at UCLA's problem, right? You look at Clemson, who predominantly was dominant before the NIL era. You have FSU, who won 2 games and now is ranked top 10. I mean, there's a lot of weirdness that's going on that we haven't seen before. Hell, even Notre Dame, who lost 2 games to 2 ranked opponents, are still ranked in the AP, which is unheard of. There's a lot of change coming. Again, we can go back and forth, talk about the AP for more, but we're not there. We're not there. We're not with the AP. We've done that enough. Another thing I want to say is, this match reminded me of 2 UFC opponents. Illinois being the higher ranked opponent in the fight, and this is the main event, and Indiana's bouncing around, and they're like, well, Indiana might do this and they might do that. And everybody's just saying Illinois is going to control the fight. They're going to take it to the distance and win last second, blah, blah, blah. And then Indiana just comes out there, does like a bicycle kick. Illinois comes down, stumps over, and is TKO'd in 5 seconds. I mean, what a way to whoop an ass. Like, it was utterly crazy the way they took care of Illinois. Illinois didn't have a fighting chance. Fighting Illini? Fighting who? They were fighting themselves, not doing anything. This Indiana program, and I also wanted to bring this up too, a lot of people criticize their first 3 games not being against anybody that's productive or big named. First off, Indiana's in the Big Ten. They're in a conference. This is an independent. I get that perspective from a Notre Dame person because we don't have a lot of games. And like Nick and me have conversations about, it's harder to find those ranked games later in the season because if we said, let's play Penn State like we did back in the day in like week 10, they're going to look at us and laugh because they probably have 2 or 3 ranked opponents in their own conference they have to play. Why would they play it independent? They have nothing to prove there. Now, going back to it, Indiana played some opponents that weren't that great. Okay, so what? What were they doing? They were learning how to play their offense. They were figuring out what works and doesn't work. Okay, it's way easier to figure out those little things when you're up 27-0 and you're like, this guy was in the right slot and you're studying film. So when you play a team like Illinois, you're like, this is where we need to be. And let me tell you, they were where they needed to be. I mean, Illinois this was shocking for me because twice, not once, not twice, but twice, just like the Tiger King said. I texted in the group chat. I said, do we want to go with the over? I will admit, I was really tired the first time, and I didn't realize that I already said don't bet the over. Well, Nick, your team got the over in their own score. It was like 52.5. They scored 63, so they covered just by themselves, Nick. Have more faith in the scoring.
Hey, Drew, you were 100% correct there. And I thought this would be more of a defensive football game. I did have confidence Indiana would win. I hate to be the guy that's saying, my team is good. Trust my team, because nobody trusts Indiana. And hopefully the fact that they had a primetime win on Saturday night, more people got to watch them in their true element in a home game where they played well. Because like we said on the preview show, I think most football fans, if they watched Indiana at all last year, it was only the Ohio State game and the Notre Dame game. So this is Indiana at full strength, and I would put Indiana up not as a favorite, but if you had to play the Indiana team we saw last night, I'd like to see them play anybody in the country because their front seven is vicious. And Mendoza was like 21 of 23 passing or 22 of 24 passing. And people laughed when they played Indiana State and they're like, oh, they beat Indiana State. And Fernando Mendoza was 19 of 20 in the first half against Indiana State. And I know nobody cares, but the accuracy that he has with his arm talent and his ability to thread the ball into tight spaces and see coverages is, I don't want to say it's unteachable, but there's a lot of talent and a lot of quarterback coaching and a lot of schematics that goes into it. It's not something that happens on accident. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. This is almost taking us to our next segment. Are you ready to get to Ballers of the Week, or do you want to keep talking about your IU boys?
Now it's time for Ballers of the Week. Our selections for top offensive skill players from this past weekend. Ready to put some points on the board? Here we go.
All right, Ballers of the Week, Nick. I'm sure you have a lot of ballers because, IU scored. Was it their basketball team playing Illinois? Oh, no, it was the football team. Go ahead, Nick.
I got Fernando Mendoza, who had 2 incompletions and 4 or 5 touchdown passes against the Illini. It was unbelievable. I also got Omar Cooper, who was all over the field as a wide receiver. The RPO game with Indiana is really strong with him and Elijah Surratt, but Omar Cooper gets my receiver of the game last night. I want to give one in a losing effort to Dylan Raiola from Nebraska, who showed a lot of poise under pressure, and maybe we're going to pull that Boba Fett clone thing off of him now. I'll leave that up to Drew, him being the Patrick Mahomes clone. I really have a lot of respect for the way Dylan Raiola played yesterday because his offensive line didn't protect him at all. Also, same game, Justice Haynes, another 75-yard touchdown run. He had about $150 on the ground. Justice Haynes has been the leader in the backfield of the Michigan offense. As Drew pointed out, he might be in the preseason when we cover these teams. So Justice Haynes gets a game ball along with the other aforementioned players. We had some gritty situations this week. Some games were closer than others, but the guys I just pointed out really performed under pressure to a very high degree of difficulty situation. Drew, who you got for your Ballers of the Week?
My Ballers of the Week, I got Omar Kelly, Michigan State. He had 6 receptions, 133 yards, and a TD against USC. He's one of the main reasons why that game was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. I thought for sure Michigan State was going to pull a rabbit out of their hat, but they didn't. Another one is Boba Fett. We're going to keep it that way. It just makes more sense. Dylan Raiola, 308, 3 TDs and 74% against a really good Michigan defense. Now, Michigan defense has changed some people, but they still have a stellar defense. Notre Dame, figure it out. We're talking to you here. John Mater, Oklahoma. We didn't really cover this game much, but we did have him on the previous show. He had 271 yards through the air, 1 TD, 67% against Auburn, and another top 25 win for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's looking deadly in the SEC. We might see them play some of our Big Ten teams come to college football time, so we got to keep an eye out for him for sure. Do you want to go to offensive tack? Oh, well, Buffet Busters.
I always want to do Buffet Busters. I brought pancakes. You guys ready for this?
Yeah, let's see pancake before we get there. All right, let's get to Buffet Busters.
Ring the dinner bell. It's time for Buffet Busters, our top offensive line performers of the week. Anyone in the mood for pancakes?
I've got 2 Buffet Buster awards to hand out this week. Game balls for 5 big old offensive linemen on 2 different teams. I'll give it to my Indiana Hoosiers first. 302 rushing yards for a finesse passing offense is not a bad clip for the Hoosiers to operate at. They've ran for 300 yards in every game this season, or at least that's the average. So Indiana Hoosiers offensive line, you did hand out some pancakes. You did bust some ass this weekend against the highly touted Illinois defensive front. And also, I got to give one to the Michigan offensive line that at key points in the game dominated the offensive line of scrimmage against a Nebraska team where I guess I had question marks and the questions have been answered. Nebraska they have a good team. They don't have a team that can win in the trenches against tough Big Ten teams like Michigan. So Michigan offensive line, you also get some pancakes. You get a game ball, all 5 of you, and you are in the Buffet Busters room. We'll meet you at Golden Corral, fellas, and we'll see how much we can eat. Drew, do you think you could eat more than me? That was easy. Who you got,
Yeah,
Drew?
I'm very, just by saying that, I've tried done White Castle challenges with my friends. I just can't muster up anything.
I win every time. I don't
I
think
just feel
anybody
like,
can eat more than me unless they weigh like 400 pounds. I could eat all day. That's one of
well,
the great
remember,
struggles of my life. This is part of Buffet Busters. One of the great struggles of my life is that I could literally sit here and eat all freaking day, and I choose not to. I've got some mints. I'm chewing on a mint right now. But boy, if you handed me 3 large pizzas right now, I could eat all of them. Drew, who you got on Buffet Busters? Save me
well,
from myself.
they do say if you eat after a certain hour and you grab snacks from the cubby drawer, you are on the offensive line. Indiana, great job. I'm also going to give you roses to that whole offensive line. I did not, again, I am shocked. I did not see this game. Okay, first off,
Yeah.
game 1 or 2 scores, but the way that Indiana won, holy hell.
Yeah.
Give the game ball to all of those boys. I'm going to give it to 2 more units. The other unit I got here is Maryland. I like Maryland a lot. They did a very good job against Wisconsin's defense, who's been pesky at times.
Yeah.
Maryland showing that they can do something, which was very interesting. I'm giving mine to that offensive line. And then my third rose I'm going to give is to Iowa. Iowa just, again, doing what you need to do to progress. Now, we're really going to see an interesting matchup in those boys because, again, a lot of people don't think Indiana has anybody. Well, let's keep using those air quotes because Iowa, you will be tested next week, right, Nick?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And that's a good game ball to give the Iowa offensive line with Jennings Dunker and Logan Jones at center. I want to give a shout out to Carter Smith and the Notre Dame transfer, Pat Coogan at center for Indiana Indiana had a good center last year, Mike Katic, who was a very good team captain of the offensive line, but Pat Coogan has picked up that mantle. They were actually friends. That's been huge for Indiana having Coogan this year because he's the type of annoying team leader who's probably so enthusiastic that the other guys are like, I'll try hard just to make him shut up. But I feel like the Iowa offensive line has a similar dynamic. Those guys are a really tight-knit group, and they did produce really well offensively this week. So good call on that, Drew.
Thank you. Do you want to head to the trenches?
Yeah, yup.
If you enjoy quarterbacks with grass stains on their jersey and pretty boy ball carriers running for their lives, this might be your favorite part of the show. It's time to go in the trenches, where we celebrate the top defensive line and linebacker players of the week.
Nick, I think there's a unit you want to mention here, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to give a game ball first and foremost, the entire IU front 7 for allowing how many rushing yards, Drew? Was it 32? Was it 52? Or was it 2? 2 rushing yards allowed by this Indiana football defensive front 7. And I want to give a special shout out to Relaja Hardy and Isaiah Jones, 2 linebackers not the All-American linebacker Aiden Fisher. The names that kept getting mentioned were Hardy and Jones. And so this is not a team that's relying on one or two stars. There's other guys I could mention. The two big boys up front at defensive tackle outperform my wildest expectations, but this IU front seven is something to be reckoned with. So they get my main in the trenches ball. I want to give one to also Deshaun McCullough, edge rusher, Nebraska, who actually was in Indiana. I think he played his freshman year at Indiana, coincidentally. He had a sack. He had a couple TFLs the other day for Nebraska against Michigan. This guy's a freak athlete, really fun to watch. And then second to IU's front seven, which was incredible, I got Bryce Betcher, the linebacker from Oregon. He had 9 tackles the other day against Oregon State in the first half. I'm watching this game. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's that Bryce guy. He's the linebacker from Oregon. He's pretty good. And then they put the stat up, 9 tackles. And I'm like, it's the second quarter. He's got 9 tackles. I'm like, this guy is an absolute animal. And Oregon's defensive front seven and their offensive line are incredible. I look forward to watching them for the rest of the year against better competition. But they're one where the other team tries to run to the outside and it's all funneled back and coordinated. Like their front seven hunts like a wolf pack the same way Indiana does. I'm really looking forward to that game in a few weeks. Drew, who you got?
Well, again, Indiana in the trenches. Giving up 2 yards was huge. I can't say that. Again, that is just insane. 2 yards. I mean, I get the quarterback gets sacked, but again, you can't recover any more than that. That is just sounds like a 12-year-old who just played college football and all they do is throw the ball and they never run the ball. That's all I have to say about that. I also want to give a rose to Oklahoma. I thought Oklahoma did what needed to be done against Auburn and really stifled that whole operation. I also want to give a rose to Michigan. Now, this might sound controversial because of what I said earlier, but then I started thinking about it. I'm like, Michigan, you actually did have to stop somebody without your head coach and Dylan Raiola, and you somehow came up on top of the game. So you get a rose. Maybe it's a pedal, but those are my kudos are going to you. You want to go to the no-fly zone?
Before we do, yeah, I thought about giving one to Michigan also because I mean, to slow down the running game of Nebraska the way they did was pretty impressive. But let's go to the no-fly zone.
2/3 of the earth is covered by water. The other third is covered by our next segment. Time to enter the no-fly zone with our top defensive back performers of the week.
All right. Well, we're here. No-fly zone. F-22s and F-19 Raptors just flew over and intercepted the terrorist. Go ahead, Nick. Who do we got?
I got Christian Gray for Notre Dame. I thought he was really good over the weekend. If they'd let him play press man coverage most of the game like they did last year, he would be even better. But I got Christian Gray. He's a straight baller. And then my favorite defensive back in the country, I'm not biased or anything, is D'Angelo Pons. He started the momentum for the Hoosiers in this massive victory against the Illini with a blocked punt that he recovered for a touchdown. If you guys saw the play, it was wild. He blocked the punt straight down to the ground. It bounced over his head, and he was looking around like an outfielder trying to track down a fly ball. And then spun a 360, picked it up, ran it back for a touchdown. Then, of course, played great the rest of the game. There was one play that I heard somebody blame. This is one of those things that you have to go to film room for. They said he blew a coverage, but actually to me it looked like he was supposed to pick up like trade responsibilities with another DB. But that was Illinois' only touchdown of the game. D'Angelo Pons is a guy, especially if you're a little guy and you want to see guys on the football field who go out there and battle with the Giants. He's listed at 5'9", I think. He might not be all of 5'9", but he likes going against big boys, and he likes going out there and make big-time plays. D'Angelo Pons is a player that my dad would have loved if he was still alive, because my dad was a smaller guy when he was young. He was a late bloomer, and I love D'Angelo Pons, and I got him on my no-fly zone. You don't want to go one-on-one with D'Angelo Pons. It doesn't matter how big you are. He said he likes covering bigger receivers because they're a bigger target to hit. So D'Angelo Pons is He's in my Hall of Fame right now after last night's IU win. Drew, who you got?
Yeah, I got Cole Sullivan out of Michigan. He successfully did a tip drill. Ball was bad in the air. Dylan Raiola made a mistake. Came down with it. That was a huge turning point of that game. I also have an honorable mention, Jackson Rexroth, Iowa linebacker. He had a pick. That's a no-fly zone. Well, sometimes, when fighter jets go out there, they never go out by themselves. Sometimes they go in pair. And, sometimes when we go on bombing raids or runs, they also go in packs. And that's exactly what Western Michigan did, holding Tucker Gleason to 89 yards overall. They're getting a rose. That is huge. They had him for 15 for 30 and created chaos. All right? If I was running the air raid, this never happens.
If Drew was running the air raid, he'd lay about 40 points on you. Or I'd be the defensive coordinator, and then that might be in question. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, Tucker Gleason, though, against Western Michigan, I don't think you can hold me down with him. Maybe the other teams, but Western, I mean,
we want to put
that's a
that to the
MAC
test.
loss.
Let's put that to the
I
test.
mean, we could. We might have to do a live stream.
If the software will work. Huh. Well, okay, with Western Michigan, can I do it? If you were Toledo?
Yep, you can do that.
Okay, I'm not sure. We might run it, though.
Yeah, just for fun. See if I get more than 89 yards and 30 less passes.
Okay, I'm not sure I could do that. Okay, you are correct, Drew. Again, Drew, is there anything else I was wrong about this week that you want to point out?
Ooh, trying to catch me off guard.
He's like, yeah, all kinds of shit, Nick. He's like, Nick, you're
Yeah,
wrong a lot.
let's see.
I just don't tell you.
Yeah, let's see.
I already pointed out the bets I lost. Did we point out all the bets I won this weekend or just the ones I lost?
Yeah, we can point out the bets you won. Do you got them pulled up?
What did I miss? Okay, so I missed Friday night over-under Iowa, Rutgers. We got that one.
We're sorry.
Logging into the DraftKings. See, Drew, I told you that we were going to make this gambling segment the best thing on internet television. Now, I'm doing a great job of holding up my end of the bargain right now by not having my bets pulled up. They call that hypocrisy. Is that what that is? I had Nebraska plus 2.5 at home. That was a loss. I had Iowa and Rutgers under 46.5, which that had to be a trap bet. Vegas had that. Fucking Iowa scored 38. Give me a break. All right, I lost that one. I had a parlay that I did not advertise to you. That doesn't count. I had Oregon minus 35.5. They won by 34. Let me tell you about this one. They were up 31, and Lanning, trying to pour it on, as I predicted, was going to go for it 4th and goal at the 4-yard line, and they jumped off sides or something, and then they kicked a field goal. Won by 34. The spread was 35.5. Lost that one. I did win Notre Dame minus 25.5 against Purdue. No thanks to Chris Ash, the soon-to-be fired defensive coordinator for Notre Dame. I won that one.
He didn't make it.
I did win Indiana minus, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, and 7.5. I know I can't count that as 3 different bets, but I just kept betting it. We did get that one.
You didn't have him at minus 63?
Shit. I bet the Notre Dame game again at a slightly different spread. Ohio. Oh, that's last week. Okay, so I think I was like 3 and 4 this week. But I did bet.
That's
I'm
not
like
bad.
500 because I kept betting the same game when the line changed. But what'd you have, Drew?
I had a tool bags throwback bet that I did, and I had Miami covered in the spread. At first, it looked like they weren't doing it.
Why didn't I bet that? That was a layup, right?
Yeah, Florida. They gave them minus 6.5 Miami. That was a layup. The other layup that they had too was Michigan State against USC, as we talked about. We did cover that one too as well.
See, I should have pulled the trigger on that. You gotta trust your gut, America. Don't trust these numbers. I'm not a mathlete. Neither are you. If you were, you wouldn't be watching this show. You'd be watching some Purdue bullshit or whatever. Trust your gut.
Yep.
Your gut doesn't lead you wrong.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we do our Midwest goodbye?
I mean, Indiana absolutely beat the brakes off Illinois, and I'm not dancing on Illinois' grave. I like Brett Bielema. Doing this show with you, Drew, has made me like and appreciate so many more teams and so many more coaches that Indiana just beat their pants off. It's incredible. I never thought in my life I would see an Indiana team that dominated a ranked team defensively the way they did. In Indiana's lackluster football history, which I have observed more of than I care to share with the audience right now, when Indiana had a team that was half-ass worth a damn, it was because they had a good offense, or a really good offense. They lost 45-42 in a Saturday night primetime game against Ohio State about 10 years ago. I'll never forget that one. But it was like, we have to outscore you. To give up 2 rushing yards to a top 10 ranked team, even if Illinois shouldn't have been ranked that high, to give up 2 rushing yards to anybody in the Big Ten, it's unfathomable. I know I feel like an idiot, and I feel like this is not real, but I feel stupid describing how shocked I am that they were that dominant on the defensive side of the ball. I've never seen it before.
Yeah. What about the meme I made you? The meme video I made you. Do you want to describe that too?
Well, why don't you post it? Anybody ever seen the movie Tombstone? This is the Midwest Goodbye on Midwest Blitz. You guys ever see the movie Tombstone? You guys remember when Doc Holliday goes for the final
That's the ending of
showdown?
the movie. Yep.
Man. Yeah. Drew, you got to post it. If you guys are following us on the socials and the Twitters and whatnot, you got to watch it. Drew created a Mona Lisa masterpiece here that represents what happened in the Indiana game last night. Drew, do you think that Illinois might have a hangover after this disappointing loss, or do we think that Bielema can get the troops rallied and rebound after this?
They have some leadership. They have a great coach. They got a lot of cake, not some cake, not even normal amount of cake, a lot of cake in the face when they played against Indiana. Now they get to go home and they get to play USC. And remember, Notre Dame, wrong team. Illinois has a history against USC because, again, USC would come to the Midwest. They'll play Illinois. They play Notre Dame. They play these other schools that have, well, Notre Dame's a good football program. Illinois sometimes has a good football program. Plays these classical teams. So USC is like a rival to the Midwest Blitz. But they somehow found their ticket into the Big Ten. So now we have to be fair in a way.
You mean you and I have to be fair, or?
Yeah.
No, we don't.
The fans can hate them.
We don't like USC. I think it's pretty well announced. We don't like USC the same way that Drew doesn't like people from Kansas. And I don't know if I ever brought this up to you guys, but Drew really hates people from Kansas. I don't know why. It's just a thing. It's a strange prejudice that Drew has against people from Kansas. And I mean, it's not the most fun state to drive through, especially if you're going east and west. But like, Drew has a big thing against people from Kansas and the whole state of Kansas as a whole. And I don't understand it, but I have that same thing against the USC Trojans. There's no love lost for the Trojans here on the Midwest Blitz. We know that they're part of the Big Ten, but if you live in the Midwest, you know they're not really part of the Big Ten. We welcome Oregon with open arms because Oregon's really good and they're really fun to watch. I'm the same with the Washington Huskies. UCLA and USC, holy shit, have you watched UCLA this year? That's a Big Ten football team. Get out of here, dude. It's embarrassing.
It's bad.
It's pretty bad.
Bad when you lose to Mountain West teams multiple times.
Drew, what else we got on this Midwest Goodbye? Did you have a good dinner? What are you going to eat when we get off the air?
I already ate. I'm probably going to sleep because I got school in the mornings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me
I'm
too.
bored. Well, it's funny because the guy who dragged me out this weekend, very great guy, he goes, well, tomorrow I think I'm going to take the day off and just hang around and relax. I said, that must be fun, as I was driving him back home through a storm.
Not me, by the way.
Not Nick, no. I also made sure Nick's beer was full before I left and tried to take his dog out, because those are how we do Midwestern goodbyes.
That is Midwestern hospitality right there. No doubt. Well, Coach Drew,
Well, we can end on that, sir.
you have any other takeaways from the weekend? I could bang the IU drum for another 3 hours, but I know everyone's heard enough of it. Michigan,
Well,
better than we thought, maybe?
Yeah, Michigan. I mean, Michigan's only loss is Oklahoma, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, right now, Michigan's biggest problem, I think Michigan's biggest problem is itself. To be honest, that offense is weird. They don't throw the ball enough, which
It is weird.
at least doesn't show up in the boxing.
Yeah.
box scores. Wisconsin, USC, Washington at Michigan State, Purdue, Northwest. Yeah, they host Ohio State, so that's the only positive thing about Michigan is they host Ohio State, but they gotta go to USC and right after. Oh, USC, man, they're in a bind too. USC has a couple ranked matches in a row.
USC
looks
might
like.
have trouble. They have to go to Illinois. Is that right?
Yeah, then they have to go to Michigan, or they host Michigan. I'm looking right now. This is kind of crazy.
I think USC might have trouble at Illinois, but we'll do a more advanced scout on that.
Yeah, so they have Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska. Then they have Iowa, and then they have Oregon. They're 4-0 right now.
That's not an easy schedule at
Oh,
all.
for sure. Hell no.
Yeah.
No, that sounds like Wisconsin. I mean, they got to go through a gauntlet now.
Jeez, Wisconsin. We'll talk about Bucky the Badger next week. I'm not hearing good things about. There were fire Fickle chants over the weekend.
Even though he signed his contract.
I know. I never saw that coming. But Maryland's better than we have thought they were. And they're another redheaded stepchild of the Midwest Blitz because they're on the East Coast and we didn't think they were going to be very good. They're either already at or about to break their season total on over-under wins from Vegas. And we're going to talk about Malik Washington. Did I mention him in my Ballers of the Week? Malik Washington ain't no joke. He ain't no joke.
Yeah, I don't think you mentioned him, but he is balling.
Shit, dude.
If we don't know him now, he's a baller of the week.
You will. Drew, has this been another Midwest Goodbye brought to you by the Midwest Blitz?
This has been another Midwest Goodbye brought to you by the Midwest Blitz.
It ain't the
Yeah,
first,
yup.
and it won't be the last. Yeah, yup. Guys, we will see you next time. Enjoy the Big Ten season. All the conference seasons are getting going this week, so college football is only going to ramp up and get more exciting from here till Christmas. Feels like Christmas right now, Coach Drew.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. Now it's time to conference play. Signing off.
See you guys. Have a good week.